Hey, this is a Hakawati production. Hi, welcome to the Men's Room. It's great to have you. Have you subscribed yet? If you haven't, right now is a great time to do so. Just click that button. It's as simple as that. So today we're talking about MMA, or mixed martial arts, which is a full contact sport that allows striking and grappling both on and off the ground. We hear that term a lot these days, MMA, but not everyone knows what it's all about. So we've brought in an expert to really explain what it means. What are the rules? Are there any rules? Abdo el Hage is the owner of the Victory Club in Lebanon. He's an internationally certified MMA coach and also the head of the Victory Club MMA Academy. Hey, thanks for coming in today.
Hi, Nadia. Thank you for having me.
So, are there any misconceptions about MMA?
Of course, there are big misconceptions about MMA. MMA is thought of as an extreme and brutal martial arts. We tend to abolish these misconceptions, especially with the International MMA Federation nowadays, which is building up a system that can easily be taught to children and juniors in schools and in gyms. MMA is thought of as a brutal martial art because, blood is sometimes...
Flying into the audience?
Not that much, no, because,
Yeah.
It's something you usually see in MMA, but these are not severe injuries. These are normal cuts you get from MMA because we wear 4 Oz gloves, which are small ones.
What kind of gloves?
4 Oz. That's the size of the gloves, not like boxing ones. The boxing gloves are big-sized gloves, like 10 or 12 Oz. They have
Cushions?
Cushions, yeah. They protect the
face?
the wrist and the face from
Okay.
getting hurt more. But in boxing, in Muay Thai, in other combat sports, when a guy gets knocked out, he's allowed to compete again. So he's getting into the risk of getting hurt again more and more. In MMA, once you're knocked out, you stop the game. Okay, so the fight ends and you lose.
So in Muay Thai, for example, or in boxing,
Yes.
you fall on the floor, you're out. They give you a certain amount of how many seconds
Yes,
they give you?
usually 10 seconds count.
And then if you get up, the fight
Yes,
continues.
yes.
In MMA, it's not the case.
No, you don't get a count. You just lose the fight. Okay, and in MMA, when you get hit with several punches, like 5 to 6 punches, and you don't defend yourself, even if you're not knocked out, even if you're conscious, they stop the fight because it's risky to continue. In other sports, in like Muay Thai and boxing, which we respect a lot, and they are a big part of MMA, and they have their own history, which is very effective. They do not stop. They stop until you're knocked out, and when you're knocked out, you can compete
So
again.
it's weird that people think of MMA as more violent because in that sense, it's less. But are there fewer rules? What are the ground rules? You recently became a internationally certified judge, which means you can be a judge for fights all over the world, right?
True.
So what are the basic rules?
Okay, so the basic rules in MMA as what is not allowed in MMA. Of course, it's not allowed to hit on the back of the head and on the spine because it's dangerous. It's not allowed to hit on the groin because as well it's dangerous. It's not allowed to it's not allowed to choke with the hands, to poke in the eyes.
Headbutts?
Headbutts is not, of course, is not allowed. Soccer kicks is not allowed as well.
But other kinds of kicks, of course.
Of course, normal kicks like any martial arts, other martial arts are allowed. Any kicks, any sort of kicks that are legal in any martial arts are allowed. You're not allowed to put your hands on cuts in other players. Like if someone has already a cut, you cannot just squeeze or pinch.
The fact that they came up with that rule means somebody actually tried that, and that's really painful to think about.
Yeah,
right?
MMA first was a game with no rules. It started officially 25 years ago.
So that's where that's why people think of it that way, because when it first started, it didn't have rules.
True, yes. It started in 1993 and 26 years ago, officially. It had no rules. It had no weight classes. The only rules were that you can had butt.
You could do headbutts.
Headbutts, yes, and soccer kicks. You can do anything. The only thing that wasn't allowed is hitting in the groin and hitting in the spine. Okay, and those were it. You can do anything else. It evolved a lot since then. Rules are becoming more severe, and there are always researches to narrow the injuries in MMA. And I have
to reduce injuries.
Yes, and I have to point out that MMA is a new sport. It's a new martial art. It's still developing. Okay, so we're the International Federation is working on everything to make it a safe game, which is where we are reaching now.
What's the biggest MMA event in the Middle East?
The biggest MMA event in the Middle East now is Brave Combat Federation. Okay, it's based in Bahrain. Now they're having the 33rd edition.
Wait, how is that possible? Do they have one per year? Didn't you just say the sport is like 25 years old?
No, they don't have one per year.
They have many?
Yes, many per year. Yes.
I thought you were trying to trick me.
No, I'm not tricking you.
Okay.
I'm being honest.
Okay.
They have in different countries around the world. They go to Brazil. They hold events in different countries in the world. They have now one on the 27th of December in Saudi Arabia. It's the 33rd edition. There's also UAE Warriors that is held mainly in Abu Dhabi. There's one in 31st of January as well. These are professional MMA bouts or fights or competitions, These are the main two promotions now.
So who fights in those fights? Is it like someone from the region with someone international? Can it be anyone?
Yes, of course they should have a certain portfolio, certain level, of course, to fight, certain background. You cannot have an amateur to fight in these competitions because they have professional rules with no protection, only the mouth guard and the groin protection. It's worldwide. No shin guards, no headgear, no nothing. And they have, of course, different rules because in MMA junior, under 18 years old, you cannot punch on the face.
But there's not that category is not taking part in these big events, is it?
No, of course not. So you cannot have under 18 to fight in these professional competitions.
Tournaments, or what do you call it? Competition?
Usually they are called promotions. They are called promotions, but they are competitions, if you want to say sports. In the sports world.
So when you look at these guys fighting in an MMA fight, you feel like it's very violent, right? I mean, essentially you're like pounding the body and the face of your opponent. Do you have to be a violent person to do this kind of sport?
Not really. I'm not a violent person. The misconception as well is when people see other people fighting in a cage, they think it's animals fighting, Yeah,
cages. It reminds you of like the Roman games, the Roman times when they used to have gladiators like fight to the death, right?
Yeah, and more than that, they see like animals fighting because cages are made for animals. The truth behind that is that we fight in a cage because MMA has a lot of throws and takedowns. It's dangerous to fight in a ring because you might fall off of the ring and you might break your neck. So you fight in a cage to be safe. Okay, so that's a very important point to look at.
Interesting.
Yes, and of course it's an identity. When you see a football field, this is a football game. When you see a rugby field, this is a rugby game. When you see a cage, an MMA fight. So it's an identity for the game as well.
Yeah, they don't have those in like wrestling or other grappling types of sports,
the cages,
do they? Yeah.
The cage, no. It's only for MMA.
It does make it seem kind of more vicious in some way, and you're right, it does make you think of animals.
Yes.
But you're saying that you don't have to be violent.
No, at all.
Do you feel that it's a sport that's useful or beneficial to learn in terms, other martial arts are known to help, especially children, develop their focus, develop their self-control, their body control. Is it the same thing for MMA, you would say?
Yes, it's more than other martial arts because MMA combines mixed martial arts, and different types of martial arts. So you have to engage more and more mental effort to coordinate between all these martial arts. Other sports or martial arts, they focus on one. So it's easier. Just like you're holding, a plate in your hand, just like you're holding an MMA like 10 plates. You have to coordinate and balance not to fall. But what I'm talking about is mental. You have to be very mentally strong and disciplined because you see in MMA at the end of the fights, everyone respects everyone. Sometimes they bow to each other, they hug each other.
It's actually really weird to see that because you see a guy like really like messing up the other guy and then it's over and then it's like It's all good.
Yes, because the game teaches us discipline by its own. You know why? Because when you play, it's a 50-50 chance to win or lose. And when you lose, there are lots of times that you lose in your gym and other gyms in small competitions. You have to accept that, to bow down to defeat and accept it and go work harder to win again. So when you get used to this, you get disciplined and you respect the other fighter. Why you respect the other fighter? Because you know how much sweat and dedication he has put to the game in order for him to reach where he is now and to defeat you. Because MMA is one of the sports and martial arts that require dedication. Professional athletes, for preparation for a competition, they train 8 weeks, 6 hours a day.
Wow.
6 days a week. Okay, so it requires a lot of and imagine you're working hard on your conditioning, on your techniques, on your strength, and coordinating your moves against someone else who is doing the same. You're not doing it alone. You're not doing it far away from someone. So it all requires a mental focus and strength.
Strategies also.
Oh, it's the main game.
I think people don't realize that when that's the difference between people who just, know about the sport and people who are passionate, because when you appreciate not only the level of dedication and focus that it takes, but also the mental aspect of it, of how well trained, just like any other sport. I mean, in football, you have strategies for the game, right? If the opponent does this, this is what you do, and you have different options. I imagine it's the same in MMA.
True. I will give an example.
Yes.
The UFC Ultimate Fighting Championship is the most prestigious promotion in the world. It's based in the US. One of the most important fights that ever happened took place between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor, one of the top fighters in history. The fight was won only by technique, only by strategy. Few punches were hit. We didn't see any blood. We didn't see anything. It was, if you see the fight, it was pure technical. Okay, Khabib won the fight technically with only using techniques. And this is a great example that I give to my students, that technique is everything in the game. Strategies, thinking, knowing how to put what you were taught in the gym and apply it against someone else. It's not something easy. And it's a wide world, combining boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, everything. These martial arts existed thousands of years ago, and they have lots of techniques, and you have to learn everything, and apply them in a 25 minutes round. Imagine that.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot to learn.
Look, it's a large world, but I advise everyone at least to go in martial arts, okay? Because it's a whole different aspect than anything you've ever seen. I say that people who don't practice martial arts, they're missing on a lot. A world that they can be in, and they're missing out on it. Okay? Just go in for 2-3 months just to see what they are missing on, what their bodies can do.
So actually, you have a gym.
Yes.
You coach. You're a coach for, I guess, for amateur athletes and professional fighters, or
in Lebanon we don't have professional
based here.
Federations. Yes, here we are all in the International Federation of Amateur Mixed Martial Artists.
Okay, but do you also get regular people? Obviously, not everyone that wants to learn it is going to have what it takes to go and compete. So do you have a lot of people like that? Is it a good sport to do just to be in shape?
Yes, of course. It's a great sport to be in shape because it requires a lot of cardio, a lot of high intensity, a lot of focus. When you use your body strength with your mental strength, it requires double the effort. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I heard that chess players burn I don't know how many thousands of calories just playing a chess game.
Sitting down.
Yeah. So that, if you're just on a treadmill, brain dead, you probably burn a lot less calories than if you're doing what you said.
Imagine doing both.
Yeah, definitely. We had a session today actually, and I gave it a shot. When you're first learning, I can't imagine having the strategy when you're just trying to think of positioning your body right.
Sure.
It's a whole mental and physical exercise that requires a lot of precision and skill.
True.
I would say it's harder than or more challenging and interesting than most other sports. If you go skiing, it's okay, going down a hill, cycle, you pedal. This is all kinds of stuff going on at the same time.
Already it's already there. It's implemented. It's a system that the International MMA Federation put together, because what we've realized over the years that most of people that come to the game are recreational people, that want to have fun, enjoy, try the game.
Kind of like kickboxing was a trend in the past, at some point.
True. So they don't want to fight. So they adapt.
Unless someone picks on them. It's always good to know a few tricks.
Of course, you can defend yourself on the streets, but
Yeah.
we don't encourage that because we are very peaceful people, honestly. Because you take everything out in the gym, so you go out of the gym, relaxed, no tension, and that's it.
Definitely. That's how I felt after I had the session today. But let me ask you this question. That's kind of another aspect of it. We started talking about food today because I finished with you and I said I wanted to go get a falafel. You're like, no, that's really bad. And I was very confused because I thought that's a healthy choice. But we started talking about diet.
Yes.
What's the ideal diet for someone who wants to get in shape and be strong and build muscle and strength?
I need to point out that falafel, in essence, is good, is
Yes,
healthy.
you have tahini, it's full of protein. You have like the chickpeas. This is like
but fried
God's best foods all rolled into one.
But the fried falafels are bad, so you can have them grilled or anything else. You can substitute them. Everything that we eat, we can substitute in something healthier. Especially, I want to point out something that even fitness people and martial artists who tend to eat meat and chicken and all the animal products, which are considered healthier than the junk food and everything else, they can substitute everything with vegetables and vegetarian products because they have the essential amino acids, the essential proteins.
Really? So you don't hear that often from people, especially in the Middle East. And people are still trained to think that in order to build muscle, you need to consume high amounts of protein and mostly animal protein. So what are some of the vegetable protein sources that you would recommend?
Beans, all sorts of beans are main source of proteins. Nuts are filled with proteins.
They're also high in fat, though. Is that a problem?
Good fat. Of course, everything in quantities is acceptable. So if you eat like 100 piece of almonds, this is not good. Okay,
That's good.
That's not good.
What do you mean?
That's a lot.
That's like my snack in the afternoon.
That's a lot. So you have to reduce your quantities.
Okay.
And a lot of top athletes in the world, just like Lewis Hamilton, Formula One champion, he's a vegan. So this is a life example.
But he's not a heavy fighter with lots of muscle. I mean, it's a hard sport, and I've seen him in interviews. It's a hard, demanding sport, but it's not one where he needs to build up bulk. A lot of people want to change their body mass composition and turn fat into muscle, and this is where they start taking these protein shakes and all that. Are you a proponent of that?
There are vegan protein shakes.
Do you need protein shakes though? I feel like it's such a commercial industry, and you could be eating making your own foods.
If you can substitute protein shakes with the correct diet, yes, you don't need protein shakes. Usually protein shakes are a trend because they are easier, faster, and they let you have the vitamins and the necessary nutrients that you need without checking which kind of foods you need to eat and going specifically in each type of food.
But it's like artificial and processed, right?
It is, yes. It's artificial.
Do you take shakes?
I don't take shakes. I usually take them when I don't have time to eat, but I'd rather eat healthy food, and I'd rather to eat non-animal products. I'm trying to go in that direction, actually.
That's super interesting. But I imagine, do you talk about this with people at the gym or not really?
Usually, I try to implement it in front of them a little bit and to show them and explain to them the benefits. But it's already hard enough to convince them to move away from junk food and pizza and burgers and fries to eating healthy, which is eliminating this stuff.
Yeah.
So step by step, you can achieve the desired goals.
So how big is MMA in the Middle East compared to the US, for example?
It's getting bigger. But definitely...
Where is it the most popular in the world?
In the US, of course.
Yeah.
In the US, they have the UFC, they have Bellator, the two biggest promotions. Of course, there are a lot of countries that are big as well, Brazil, Russia, but the main big events are...
Would you say it's the biggest kind of sport in that realm currently in the world, or is boxing still big? Or I mean, what's the biggest, most popular?
It's the fastest growing martial arts in history. 25 years young, not old, is something incredible to where this game has achieved, or where it stands right now in the world. So it's the fastest growing martial arts ever.
So it attracts like large,
A lot
like
of
attracts a
audience.
lot of money, a lot of people in the US, and it's kind of emerging here, I guess, in the region.
I'm gonna say the difference between here in the Middle East and the States. Okay, our level is super high in the Middle East as professionals and amateurs and fighters and training, but we lack funding. That's the main issue. A fighter here in the Middle East may like have $1,500 or $3,000 for a fight. In the States, it goes up to $50,000. You know, here we don't have fighters that only live out of this. They have an 8-hour job. They go train after their jobs, like 3 to 4 hours. They sleep, they go back again to their jobs and they train. They don't have time to recover. And when you don't have time to recover, you cannot train as hard as you can. So this is the main problem.
Obstacle. So who's well positioned in the Middle East to finance the growth of the sport?
What they are doing now with the UAE Warriors and Brave Combat Federation is actually very good because they are now promoting Middle East fighters. We have a fighter from UAE who signed with Bellator in 2017. He's the first.
With what?
Bellator is one of the biggest promotions in the world.
Okay. Bellator?
Yeah, he signed with it in 2017. He's from UAE. This is a big step because we don't have...
It raises the profile of someone
yes,
from the region.
we don't have Middle Eastern or Arab...
representation.
yes, who live here.
Right.
We do have like Australians, Arabs, and originate from our region, but we don't have people that live here that signed with these big promotions. Now, Brave and the UAE Warriors are doing a great job. They're going abroad. And I want to point out something. UFC, the biggest promotion, signed with Abu Dhabi Department of Sports, I think it's called, Sports and Tourism. It's a department in the...
they have a department for everything in the UAE.
Yeah, and the government.
They might even have soon like an MMA department.
Yeah,
they have like a happiness department. I'm
but
not kidding.
That's
Yeah.
something great, really. They're a very respected country
Yeah.
and governors in
Yeah.
the UAE. So they've signed an agreement with Abu Dhabi to host UFC events in UAE. Usually, they host UFC events and all around the world. They've done it before in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and the UAE, but they didn't have any fighters from the region, or they brought all their fighters with them. Now, the agreement is to have fighters from the region fighting in UFC events that are held in Abu Dhabi, which is something very big.
So when is that going to happen? When are we going to see that?
I think it's going to be in the upcoming year. You know, they signed the agreement and they're going to start working on it. I was in Denmark, for example. I attended the UFC event, you know. The judges were from Denmark or Norway or the Scandinavian area. The fighters were from Denmark, and of course they had international fighters as well. But it's a combination, it's a mix. When they held UFC competitions and fight passes in UAE, they only had international fighters. We never had fighters from our region.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, but now the agreement is...
That's great. But if they're all not professional, how are they going to find them? That means they're going to have to start kind of encouraging this funding of professional fighters.
We already have professional fighters,
Yeah.
of course. We already have professional fighters from the region that will, of course, come back to train and settle here for these important events. So that's why these events are very important to raise the bar here and the standards of MMA in the region.
Well, I think considering everything that we talked about in terms of how it's a beneficial sport in more ways than one. It's beneficial in terms of fitness, of course, but then mentally and in terms of discipline and focus. I think it's great that there's a sport like MMA that's kind of growing and keeping the interest and keeping it fresh. So good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
All right, that's it. Thanks for listening to The Men's Room. Check us out on Instagram at hakawati.fm, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Have a good one.